Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Priyanka Menugopal. She is a former OBGYN. She really understands the working and the struggles of moms. And after battling her own weight loss issues, despite understanding health, she found burn stress or lose weight to help women manage that stress and adopt that healthier lifestyle. So she's now a full-time coach and she hosts the Burn Stress Lose Weight podcast and leads the Unstoppable Mom group. So her approach really does combine that science-based strategies with that practical mindset tools, all while connecting with busy moms who want to balance health and family life. So did I get all that right?
Oh, that's everything. That's a nutshell.
Wonderful. That sounds amazing. So tell us a little about yourself in your own words.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about women's health. I have been for a long time. It's what led me to become an OBGYN physician. And the top 3 complaints that I would see with my patients in my practice was low libido, fatigue, and weight gain for women 35 and up. And it's not surprising that there was a correlation between the women that were having kids. They would have 1, 2, 3 children, and all of a sudden they hit late 30s, early 40s, and they start to feel this real change in their wellness. And I say wellness specifically because it's not just the number on the scale creeping up, but it was their experience of their actual life. And of course, where do people go? They want to go talk to their doctor about this. And as an OBGYN, it was often that was the conversation that I was having. And for me personally, I think part of my journey was I was an overweight physician. So I knew medically, how a woman's body works, the physiology of how our bodies are working, but I was a little over 200 pounds as an OBGYN physician, giving women advice on what to do, but I felt so frustrated that I wasn't able to make some of these changes for myself. And I have a story very similar to, I think, probably many listeners, which is if you had to lose weight, you've probably tried all kinds of things. So calories and points and apps. If you've tried it, I have probably tried it. And it was back in about 2018, 2019. I had a 3.5-year-old and a 6-month-old. And I just really, I think I came to a point in my life, I woke up feeling frustrated that my life is passing me by. I have worked incredibly hard for so many decades to not feel my absolute best. And I had to ask myself this question of, am I willing to make some changes in my life to prioritize my wellness? That's the first question. And what was I willing to do to really make it happen? Because I didn't want to wake up 10 years later feeling regret that I'm losing the best time of my life for myself and for my children, feeling not just stuck on the scale, but really feeling stuck with my wellness, feeling stuck with fatigue and not comfortable in my body and not having the energy I wanted. And that was when I went on a journey to really fold in and understand not just the science of fat loss and the science of feeling better, but the mindset pieces of it, which is what led me to understand stress and unmanaged stress is such a big piece, especially for moms.
There's so many good little nuggets in what you said in there. So you'll have to check out our YouTube channel to see Priyanka right now. But you said you were a little over 200 pounds and you just look like this tiny little petite thing right now. Do you mind if I ask how much you ended up losing?
I lost a little over 60 pounds.
It's just incredible. How long did that?
It took me about 18 months to lose 60 pounds. I would say I was able to lose the most of it within 10 to 12 months. And then the last 10 pounds probably took the last 6 months. But I would say that my history, and I think, again, this is true for so many women, where you are on a roller coaster. I have lost and gained back the same 20 pounds over many years. And so I think for me, when I came into losing weight for the last time and really changing my relationship with food, changing my relationship with myself and with stress, which is why stress is such an integral piece of this, I had to really ask myself, how is it that I want to create a lifestyle that can stand the litmus test of my life? And that's really what led me to not just lose the weight, but to stop gaining it back. Women are experts at losing weight. I'm guessing everyone here has lost weight. We just gain it back. So that's the question. How do we stop gaining it back? It's really understanding some of what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. Like, is it sustainable? You talked about this, and I talk about this with my clients all the time too. Their relationship with food, is it just like a form of escapism? Are they just like eating their feelings? All of these things that I'm sure you speak to a lot on your own podcast and talk to your clients about, but just finding a way to make that manageable over time. And I love how you spoke to that part about like how life was passing you by and you really just wanted to prioritize your wellness. not just for you, but for your family culture, for your children, because the best stage of your life, you recognize, I don't want to say wasted, but there's a part of you that like didn't live your best life. And so you had regret from that. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, beyond, without a shadow of a doubt. And I remember the instant that I made this decision. I was driving to work. I was pumping while driving. I was exclusively nursing and pumping for my daughter. She was 6 months old at the time. And I remember thinking, how is it possible that I'm exclusively nursing? And this is me as an OBGYN, because you hear if you nurse or you breastfeed, the weight will just quote unquote melt off. This was not my story. I was one of those women that the weight did not melt off when I was nursing. Actually, I had a lot more hunger. I was eating a lot more. So in fact, I actually gained weight in my immediate postpartum period. So women don't always know that is a real thing. And I remember just feeling, what is happening? What is happening? I feel like I'm doing all of the things. I'm not eating that badly. How is it possible that this feels like such a struggle? And I think part of what also really led me to pursue wellness and to prioritize my wellness is because I could see that I wanted to model that lifestyle for my children. I can tell you how so often we have this idea of what we want for our kids, but it's lip service because we're not doing it ourselves. And that was what I knew. If I wanted my children to have wellness as a part of their life moving forward, I had to go first so that I could model it to them and teach it to them and really fold it into our family life.
That's beautiful. And I feel like that's what so many people end up saying, like that becomes their why, because it's not as motivating. I wish it were, but like, to just do it for ourselves. But suddenly when you see your kids following those same patterns and replicating what you're doing, you're like, wait a second, that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I imagined in my little fairy tale in my head. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And when you actually do part of what we're talking about and you do the work yourself first, it doesn't just impact one area. Like I do a lot of stress and weight loss coaching, but it trickles into your relationships, into your marriage, with your in-laws, with your parents, with your colleagues, your boss, your friends. It trickles because when you change your brain, you have one brain and it interacts with every facet of your life. So when you change your brain, it turns out that every part of your life gets leveled up. And to me, that's what lights me up so much.
Priyanka, you are speaking my language. I talk about that whole ripple effect, butterfly effect. Like I love that stuff. And I know you're going to speak to this in some of these questions I have for you, but do you mind if I ask you some specific questions that might be able to help our listeners? I'm sure they're probably like, I want to do what she did. Like, what do I do? Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. My first question for you involves stress. What are the different stress types and how can knowing ours help us?
This is a really great question. So the way that I think about stress is I first start, before I talk about the 4 different stress types, is to first normalize that stress is really helpful and important. I think we get this idea, this messaging that reduce your stress and you should be less stressed. And yes and no, because stress is actually very important for us to get out of bed in the morning, to pay our bills on time. It's actually designed for our survival. And cortisol, which is the stress hormone of our body, I think of it almost like a little superhero that is designed for our survival. It puts us into fight flight when we're encountering danger or see a threat. What we have done, unfortunately, in the modern era that we are living in is we have started to live with low buzzing, constant stress. So something that should really be a quick survival response has become our day-to-day routine. And now we are living where cortisol could be a tiny superhero that saves us, has started to become a little bit of a villain, really create a lot of havoc in our body. So the way that I describe stress is in 4 different flavors. A lot of us have heard of fight and flight, but there are really 4 different stress types. There's fight, flight, and fawn. So fight is something, if you imagine like a tiger or a bear, you see a tiger or a bear. I don't know how many of us would fight the tiger or bear. I don't know, like, I'm going to flight. I'm going to run away from that thing. But some of us might go into fight mode or feel attacked by someone. If we think about a practical example of this, if a colleague or a boss or a partner gives you harsh criticism or says something to you that you don't love, you might become defensive, or you might have a lot of self-criticism or blame or judgment. So that's a form of fight. Blame, criticism, judgment of the other person or of yourself. Flight, an example of flight is when you hide or run away from the proverbial bear or tiger, but you could flight from the scale. If you're someone that never wants to stand on a scale because you're so afraid of what the numbers are going to show, it's like hiding, right? You're hiding from the results. Is a huge one for women. I see this with a lot of professional working moms. It's procrastination. Procrastinating is huge, especially for women, because we can't just procrastinate. We have to be productive when we procrastinate. So instead of me working on my project or the deadline coming up, I'll go check my email inbox, or I'll go laundry, or I'll go clean the kitchen. So we end up procrastinating on the thing that will move us forward, or we are ruminating and second guessing our decision. We go to something else. That's the freeze response. And then fawn, an example of fawn is people pleasing. So you say yes to things you really want to be saying no to. My favorite example, I think about this all the time with my kids, it's like volunteering for International Day. Can somebody bring in food for the India table, for example? Maybe there's like very few people from your culture and there you feel like obligated to say, yes, I really don't want to be doing this. But because you just feel like you're supposed to fulfill some type of societal norm, you say yes to something instead of saying no. So I would think about a lot of our behaviors as busy professionals does fall into these 4 categories simply because we're programmed and it's really very primitive.
So just understanding this will help us better. I love how you said that procrastinative working. I've never heard of that, but that's totally what not only do I do, but my clients do that as well. Just this addiction to looking like we are very productive. Now, if we actually are, that remains to be seen. But that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So you've shared that your own understanding of stress or helping us understand what that looks like. How can parents use what you just talked about to improve their lives? What does that have to do with weight loss, or how does that all tie in?
Yeah, this is great. So I think the very first step is to start to identify which of these stress types do you most typically fall into when it comes to the goal you have. For example, I am a fighter in some scenarios and I'm a flighter in some scenarios. I'm a freezer in some scenarios, right? So all of us pick up and put down different stress type responses based on the environment that we're in. So if somebody has a weight loss goal and they notice that they're not following through on their plan, or they're not able to get consistent results or gain weight loss momentum, I think a good question to ask ourselves is, what is the one specific behavior that's getting in my way? Just one. Instead of thinking, what are the 10 things that are getting in my way? What is the number one habit that's getting in my way? And ask ourselves, is this flight, freeze, or fawn? When you really think about like the smart, resourceful, high-achieving woman, it's not smarts that's getting in our way. It's not discipline, because here we are, we're all listening to this podcast, which means there's some form of discipline to be able to be just functioning in our life. It is not smarts or discipline. So if it's not that, it's going to be a subconscious habit that falls into one of these categories. And just becoming aware, what is my number one habit that's getting in my way, will start to pave a path for what an alternative response can be in those stressful moments.
So this is going to be aired right around Thanksgiving. And as we all know, this is a big, triggering, overwhelming time. And it seems 6 months later, you're still getting rid of all the sugar in your house and just trying to recoup from all of that. So I'm a client that's really confused. I don't know which one I am. And during the holidays, like, I have really good intentions and I actually do pretty good shopping, but it's the neighbors who drop off lots of things at the doors. There's lots of community events. I don't really shop a lot like that, but I have a hard time saying no. And I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, and I end up eating the things that night. And so I just have a lot of guilt and shame. Where would I be and what do I do with that?
Yeah. So it sounds like you have more than one, right? So there's like the societal piece of it where like somebody drops something off, or especially in a holiday gathering, if everyone else is eating, you don't want to look other or different. You want to eat and drink in the same way that everyone else is. There's again, like the fitting in and the belonging, that's fawn. But there's also the other one that you mentioned, which is I'm at home, it's at night and there's nobody around then. Maybe it's just you and like the Netflix plop down. And there's often going to be some type of an I deserve it thought. I deserve a break. I need a break. And that's a fight response. I deserve it. Like it's that you feel like there's like an entitlement, right? Like I deserve a break because I'm working so hard. And that's only because we've given food a job it was never meant to have. We've given food this job of fulfilling our basic desire for rest and play. So one of the things that I do with my clients, I help them create, I call this the 3-bucket system, which is how can we really craft, thinking about your unique life, other activities that you can do other than food that give you rest, that give you play, that help you really check out when you want to check out from your real mom life, right? Like your real life as a busy mom, and actually building that in with decisions in advance. So when we make decisions in advance, we've given our brain, with our most adult part of our brain, direction. And we have to do it comprehensively. So many times, this was my mistake. This is why I was 200 pounds as an OBGYN. My plan was like a PDF nutrition plan, the foods I'm allowed to eat and the foods I'm not allowed to eat. But very few plans that I have come across are successful if they do not also have rest and play built into the plan. And I see this happening time and time again. You're going to go to a nutritionist or your personal trainer, and they're going to give you the calories you're allowed to eat. And it's no surprise that after a week or two, your brain's, hello, where's the fun in this? I remember I lost 20 pounds for my wedding because I was eating 100-calorie oatmeal packets, a lot of salad. And the day after the wedding, I'm like, we don't want to eat 100-calorie oatmeal packets forever. So no surprise, I gained the weight back very quickly, right? So actually building in rest and play into the structure of our weight loss plan is essential, because otherwise we're going to keep going off track.
I really appreciate that you said that, because you're right. Not a lot of people speak to that. My mental health and wellness, that my therapy clients, even with owning my own business, I was just listening to a podcast about the most successful people in the world take breaks like every 51 to 53 minutes or something. And so I've been trying to do pull-ups in between, do like little things to like move my body, do whatever. And without that, we get to that space of overwhelm. Before we started this episode, I was just talking about how I'm starting to roll my shoulders more. I'm starting to get more tense, more stressed, because I'm doing things right now with deadlines that's not sustainable. I've done it a little bit, that rest and that play. I like to play pickleball, but are we doing it enough? And I love that you speak to that, because not many people do. So thank you for being that voice out there.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that. This is why, in my opinion, coaching is such an integral piece of this process, because anyone can go do an action. Like I can sit getting in the tub, doing a bubble bath, and I can be stressed to no end. So there's something about doing the action of building in the rest and play into the structure of your day, but there is a mindset that goes alongside the action that we are taking. So I think about this all the time, where if you can go for a mani-pedi, you can even go for the massage. We were talking about going for a massage, but if during your whole entire massage, you're thinking about your to-do list and your schedule for next week and when I'm to get that assignment done, let's just really think about, was that actually restful? And for most professional women, we have not been taught how to have guilt-free rest. It's actually very disconcerting. It's actually one of the biggest pieces of work that I do with my clients. And this is why coaching helps us to really unlock the mindset piece, where you can go to a massage and actually feel relaxed. And when you actually do that, have guilt-free rest and play built into the structure of your life. And this is research. We are more productive when we work. So we have proper guilt-free rest, proper play. When we go to do our work, we are more effective. We're more productive. We get more done. It's like, I call these win-wins. It's like wins all around, but it requires deciding to prioritize wellness, which is where we started today.
Yeah. It actually makes me think of my own life. Like, again, we are not perfect as professionals, obviously, but as a therapist and as a coach and a podcaster, I tell my clients these things all the time. And yet I notice just the last week or so that the more productive I am, the more like it can be like such a dopamine hit, just such a it's just so nice to feel that. And then when I'm like still, I'm just so antsy, and I'm like, oh, I really want to turn that switch off. And it is so hard, even knowing all the things that I know, to just exist with my kids and not be like, okay, let's do that productive thing together. Not necessary.
Yeah, a lot of the time, and this has been my work as well, because I'm a little addicted to productivity and like getting the A+ and the gold star, like the green check marks on a to-do list. It feels really like the dopamine hit. A lot of times, and this is, I think, especially true with high achievers, overachievers, type A women, we focus so much on the goal, and that's where we're getting a lot of our dopamine hits, that we forget to fall in love with the process. And this is the work of Carol Dweck. She's out of Stanford. She talks a lot about growth mindset. And a lot of her work has talked about how we can start to reprogram our brains, because guys, like our brains have neuroplasticity. We can rewire our brains, which is the best part. When we learn how to fall in love with the process, we actually can release dopamine along the way. It's how we can release the reins off of the goal. And to me, this is the hardest piece. Like putting this into practice is probably the hardest part, but just knowing, imagine if you could lose weight or whatever your goal is, get that job promotion, change your marriage, change how you feel about your children, get to your body goal. while loving the process. If you love the process, the chances are you're going to be much more likely to sustain that process for a lifetime. Most people are so focused on the goal that they're willing to just grit and grind through the worst thing ever, eat 100-calorie oatmeal packets, and hate the process. So of course they don't keep it up. So I think that that's my plug for really learning how to fall in love with the process so we can get out of the productivity addiction that we all have.
Yeah, that's super important. And like you said, like I think that can be really hard for me too, because I think there's a balance. Like I always think of it as like this spectrum or like this teeter-totter. Like my husband's on one side, like he totally is enjoying the journey, like looking at the butterflies, bouncing around. And I'm over here, dude, there's a finish line. Like we need to get there. There's stuff we gotta get done. We both serve our families very well, but it's like both of us kind of coming to that middle ground. But I have learned to appreciate over the years, like how beautiful that is that he can enjoy those butterflies when I'm like, what butterflies?
Yeah, it's very similar for us. And I think the two things can be true at the same time, right? Like we can learn how to fall in love with the process because I think it will help our mental, emotional, physical wellness if we can do that. And also, of course, we love hitting goals. Of course, we love crossing the thing off the list. That's never wrong. I think really learning that we can get out of all or nothing, that's been my work. I think a lot of humans, we're in all or nothing. It's perfectionism. Getting out of that and really allowing there to be space for both.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So glad that you hit on several of those points. Another quick question I had for you is you focus on this holistic approach to stress management, but how do different stress types affect our mind and our body? And what tips do you have for those? I know you talked about losing 60 pounds yourself. And I know a lot of the listeners are thinking again about those holidays, like what can they do to help them in small ways?
Practically speaking, and this is really great because the holidays are the time that historical data has shown us we gain the most amount of weight over the course of the year. So if we think about between Halloween and New Year's Day, that's where we're gaining the most amount of weight. How can we empower ourselves to maybe not do that? I think the very first thing is to actually come into the holidays with a small goal. It doesn't even have to be a weight loss goal. Depending on where you are in your journey, you might just decide, I want to just maintain over the course of the holidays. If you have weight to lose, I'm going to go through the holidays, I want to maintain, and then I'm going to start my weight loss journey. But at least that way you're not having to undo weight gain over the course of the holidays. That's the very first thing, is actually deciding what your goal is. Without a goal, it's like you have nothing programmed to your GPS. There's no destination to go to. We have nothing to work towards. So number one is to set a goal. Number two is to decide, it speaks to what we were talking about, what's the one habit that's gotten in the way of this? Is it snacking and nibbling all day, all night? Is it overeating when I go to a holiday event? Is it having dessert after every single meal? Is it eating highly processed food all the time? What are the decisions that I'm making that's getting in the way of that goal? And then the third piece would be actually building in structure, which is making decisions around your nutrition. And that doesn't mean you have to know every single menu before you go to somebody's house or before you go to a restaurant. I really teach, if you simply eat when you're hungry and you stop when you're not, and you focus on choosing the highest quality foods, you will, in fact, lose weight. You'll become a fat burner through science-backed strategy, like without counting calories and points, simply by choosing high quality foods, eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're not. So what that means is you go to Thanksgiving, there's a whole buffet of food to choose from. Imagine that you simply chose the best quality stuff that looked the most delicious, and you just stopped when you got satiated. Just that one tool, my friends, you will lose weight by New Year's. So that's hard, right? For someone to actually get to that place they're satiated, and now to say no, we have to have power there. And that's mindset. That's the coaching piece of it. But to know that you're going to eat again, it's going to be okay, right? Food does not have to play the role of creating all my joy, building in rest and play. So we have to have built in rest and play into the plan, and then rinsing and repeating, doing it again and again.
Priyanka, you probably have noticed this a lot in your podcast as well, but every time I have guests on, I think, yeah, it's just so simple. The answers truly are, but we're looking for some like magical thing that's going to turn us into Cinderella. And what you just told me, like empower yourself by setting those small health goals, find out what gets in the way and build in structure. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're not, and focus on those good foods. Like those are relatively simple things, but we want this magic pill. We want this other thing. It doesn't.
We want it to be easy. And that is like the worst thing to ever tell yourself about a goal that you care about.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a good question. Like I want to ask everyone really listening to this is, if you have a goal you really care about, does your goal deserve your discomfort? And for me, my answer has always been absolutely yes. The reality of weight loss, now I have worked with women in every industry, busy physicians, attorneys, veterinarians, professors, team leaders, small business owners, like every single industry. And what I have found across the board, when I take a fine-tooth comb over success, results like on the scale, off the scale, it is simple and it's not always easy. And is your goal worth that? Is it worth the discomfort of feeling courage, of feeling a moment's discomfort, of practicing something new, learning new skills? Learning new skills, I want to feel courage, but courage does not always feel good. It feels terrible a lot of the time. It's okay. Do it anyway.
That's such a beautiful way to put it, though. Does your goal deserve your discomfort? I've never heard it put it in that way, but it's a perfect way to put it. I got an email from myself yesterday. I don't know if you ever do that, but I totally utilized the future send email.
Future send, yeah.
And I wrote myself an email after the holidays and I reminded myself some things that I wanted to remember. And I was like, man, that is good insight, Kendra. Good for you for writing that down because I totally forgot. I thought I would remember. But just simple little things like, Kendra, remember that you overdo stocking stuffers every year for Christmas. And by the time Christmas comes, you are so over sugar, but now you feel like compelled to eat this stuff that you spent this money on and you don't want to throw it away. So like all these like tiny little things where I'm like, trust me, you are not going to need that much. Nobody cares. Just do a little of these things.
Yeah.
And some other advice that I gave myself. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's implement that earlier this year.
I think about when you're a kid, if your kid is trying out for like the soccer team, for example, what's the lesson you want your kid to learn to get onto that soccer team? That it's not actually always easy. Sometimes the coach is going to ask you to show up early and stay late and to do the extra drills to improve their skill set. What is the lesson that we want to impart to our children is a resourcefulness and having some grit when it does feel uncomfortable. It doesn't mean that it's uncomfortable all the time. Soccer, being on a team is like so amazing and so fun, and like the teamwork and the camaraderie and like the joy you get in the sport. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy all the time. And I think that I like using children examples because it's so tangible for moms. Of we know what we want for our children. And this kind of speaks to what we were saying earlier. We just get to go first.
Yeah, I think there's this quote that said something like, I didn't say it would be easy. I just said it'd be worth it. All the things that are worth it are usually not easy. I think that's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And time has gone so fast. I'm wondering if you could share some quick science-backed tips for parents to manage stress, maybe beyond what you've shared with us already, especially on their type when life gets crazy during these holidays.
Yeah, I think that there is one tool that anyone can pick up that takes less than 60 seconds. There's a lot of science and actually research now that has shown affect labeling will decrease distress signals in your amygdala. So the amygdala is a part of your brain that is associated with stress, fight and flight. That's like where your cortisol is acting. Simply labeling how you feel in the moment will decrease distress signals in your brain. So this sounds so simple. So it's like, how can something so simple be so effective? That is what the research is showing. Simply saying, I feel stressed right now. I feel bored. I feel angry. I feel really irritated. I feel really mad. I feel worried. So simply attaching a name to how you feel and sitting with that for 60 seconds, just taking a breath, you're basically showing your brain that this spreadsheet is not a lion. You're showing like this fight with my partner or this worry that I have about my child is not actually a harmful lion or tiger that I have to run away from. It's normal. It's an emotion that I'm having. It's a vibration. Nothing's going wrong. It's okay. And just that is actually going to chemically help the physiology of how you experience stress. You're still going to go take action. You're still going to go do, the things to resolve the conflict that you're having or the trouble that you're in, but you're going to do it from a different place where you just simply start affect labeling. So it's pretty cool.
It's amazing. And again, just a small thing that we can do. And I speak to that as well a lot with my clients and my listeners. I feel statements really are powerful. And I think that second layer that I have learned to do both with me as a client and also me as the coach or therapist, is recognizing where I feel that tension in my body. Like when I started to recognize that I carried a lot of it in my shoulders, sometimes I'd notice the shoulders before I'd notice the feeling. And so now I'm able to be like, oh, I think I'm stressed out. I wasn't really paying attention, but yeah, I feel stressed. I feel tense. I feel overwhelmed. Beautiful little thing that we can do to just be more aware. I loved your insights, and I'm really appreciative of those tiny little ways that you were able to break it down for things that we could do, especially during the holidays, to maybe lean in and try little tools to build better health and better wellness without feeling like that weight that is so impossible. I'm sure people you probably hear this all the time, but looking at you and being like, oh, she lost 60 pounds in 18 months and she's just doing awesome, but I could never do that. But there's sharing that there are these simple things that you did that work.
Yeah. And one of the things that I share often with my audience and with my clients is success is built on the backs of failure. One of the biggest lies that I told myself when I was at my heaviest, I would see somebody at their goal weight or that they've been successful with their weight loss journey. I'm like, oh, it's just easy for them. Oh, like it's because they have a predictable schedule. Oh, it's because their husband is actually supportive. Oh, it's because their kids are easy. It's because they don't have to be on call every fourth weekend, every fourth Friday, and every single Tuesday. I had a really very compelling story of how it was easier for that person. And while I did that, I never solved the problem. So part of what I had to really see is, oh, I have failed so many times at this. And if I could be willing to learn from my off-plan moments, if I could be willing to learn from the times that I went off track and gained it back, how much wiser would I be? And if I could learn from those, maybe I could actually solve this. I had to fail, and I have multiple times to get to success. And the only way was to take quitting off the table. So if you see someone that's lost the weight, I think a better thought to think is their success was built on the backs of failures. If they can do it, why not me?
That's so beautiful. Absolutely. Success is built on the backs. Wow, that's amazing.
No such thing as an overnight success. There's literally no such thing.
I know. I always want that to be true, and it just continues to not be true.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, Priyanka? You had such beautiful things there. So where is the best place to look for you?
So I am Burn, Stress, Lose Weight everywhere on the internet. I have a podcast, Burn, Stress, Lose Weight. And that's where I share a lot of practical strategies and tips. I go through like the 4 stress types we talked about today. I have an episode dedicated to each stress type where I walk through it, talk you through kind of strategies and tips and tools that you can use. And Burn, Stress, Lose Weight on Instagram. And that's my website.
Wonderful. I will definitely put that in the show notes so that listeners, you can check it out there and find her in all the places. But thank you, Priyanka, so much for coming on and giving us those little morsels that are going to help us take our health and our wellness to the next level, especially during the holiday season. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you, no matter what your house or your hair looks like. I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.